It is still surprising how Adolf Hitler, a controversial figure responsible for one of the most significant genocides in human history, managed to ascend to power in a democratic nation like Germany. To understand the story, we need to go back to the end of World War I. With the Allied forces making significant headway in 1918, Germany came to the realization that victory in the war was unattainable, prompting the signing of an armistice to stop the war. As the imperial government collapsed in Germany, civil unrest and labor strikes swept across the country. Fearing a communist revolution, major political parties came together to quell the uprisings and establish the parliamentary Weimar Republic. One of the new government's initial challenges was implementing the peace treaty imposed by the Allies. This treaty mandated the loss of a considerable portion of German territory, the dismantling of its military, and the acceptance of full responsibility for the war. Along with the obligation to pay reparations, these terms dealt a severe blow to an already weakened German economy. Many nationalists and war veterans viewed these provisions as a humiliating injustice and believed that the war could have been won, had it not been for the alleged betrayal by politicians and protesters. For Hitler, these sentiments became an obsession, and his prejudice and paranoid delusions led him to place the blame on Jews. His rhetoric found resonance in a society with a significant anti-Semitic sentiment. Despite the integration of hundreds of thousands of Jews into German society, many Germans continued to perceive them as outsiders. Following World War I, the success of Jewish individuals led to unfounded accusations of subversion and war profiteering. It is crucial to emphasize that there was no factual basis to these accusations. Rather, these conspiracy theories were born out of fear, anger, and bigotry. And Hitler found success through this. Upon joining a small nationalist political party, his manipulative oratory skills propelled him into a leadership role and attracted increasingly larger crowds. The Nazis attracted attentions of the mass people by blending anti-Semitism with populist resentment. They condemned both communism and capitalism and portrayed these as international Jewish conspiracies aimed at destroying Germany. Initially, the Nazi Party was far from popular. After a failed attempt to overthrow the government, Hitler was imprisoned for treason and his party was banned. However, upon his release roughly a year later, he concentrated on rebuilding the movement immediately. Then came the Great Depression in 1929. This economic crisis led American banks to withdraw their loans from Germany that caused overnight collapse of already struggling German economy. Mainstream political parties proved incapable of addressing the crisis, while left-wing opposition was too divided by internal disputes. Hitler seized the opportunity. He strengthened his position by using public's anger, offered them convenient scapegoats and a promise to restore Germany to its former glory. As a result, a portion of the frustrated public turned to the Nazis that boosted their parliamentary vote share from under 3% to over 18% in just 2 years. In 1932, Hitler took part in presidency election. Von Hindenburg, a decorated war hero, general, won the election, but Hitler got 36% of the vote, which showcased the extent of his support. Advisors and business leaders convinced Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor in 1933. They were advocating for Hitler because they hoped to use Hitler's popularity to achieve their goals. At that time, Chancellor's role was only limited to being the administrative head of parliament, but Hitler gradually expanded the authority of his position. Meanwhile, a paramilitary group was formed by his supporters and they clashed with protesters in the streets. On the other hand, Hitler stoked fears of a communist uprising and presented himself as the only solution for restoring law and order in the country. A young laborer was convicted of setting fire to the parliamentary building in 1933. This event gave Hitler the opportunity to persuade the government to grant him emergency powers. After that, Hitler used his emergency power to abolish the freedom of speech of press, disband other political parties, and pass anti-Jewish laws within a few months. Hitler's potential rivals were arrested and executed. He even executed some of his early radical supporters. After the death of President Hindenburg in August 1934, Hitler made it clear that there would be no new elections. Interestingly, most of Hitler's early measures did not necessitate widespread repression. His speeches manipulated people's fears and anger to garner their support for him and the Nazi Party. Simultaneously, business leaders and intellectuals seeking to align themselves with public sentiment through their support behind Hitler. They reassured themselves and each other that his more extreme rhetoric was a mere facade. Decades later, Hitler's ascent serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of democratic institutions in the face of impassioned crowds and a leader willing to stoke their anger and exploit their fears.